Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to today's Morning Blast. It is Wednesday, the 3rd of September, all day. You join myself and Mr. Michael Brown for the Morning Blast, where we will be jump-starting your trading day with a review of yesterday's actions, news, price flow, etc., and a preview of today. As always, this is recorded live. We do swear. Do not take anything we say as investment advice. Give your head a wobble if you're planning on doing that, etc., etc. I'm feeling like shit this morning because for some reason I couldn't sleep very well last night. So yeah, and I'm in a very grouchy mood, and gilts are at all time. Well, not all times. But gilts are at highs last seen in 1998 or whatever it was. How are you, Mr. Michael Brown?
Very good morning to you, Ryan. Good morning, everyone. I'm much better now I'm here. I had a notice come up saying I'd been removed from the space
Yeah,
and
that
then
might be me. I
that it
think I
didn't
might.
exist anymore. So I thought
A
your
li-
grouchiness had spread to kicking me out.
little bit of a fat finger. I removed you rather than added you as co-host. I'm not gonna lie. I could try and
Well,
say, oh, it was the Gremlins, but no, it was me. I fat fingered.
some may say it would be an improvement if I was removed, but
No, I would not have that said about you at all.
good. I would hope you wouldn't. Right, shall we crack on?
Can I just do a quick bit of admin?
Oh, go on.
Um,
Oh, you want to talk about your new account?
yeah, so we've set up a new account called at PIQ Newswire. If it's our pin tweet, etc., etc. That the idea behind this is that's going to be where the fire hose of news, breaking news from Reuters, etc., is going to be based. Reason for that is we understand that the main account, it can be a bit too much for some people, especially if you're not just looking at it just for news. So the idea is we have a separate account just for the headlines and the stories for which give more color and more detail in the analysis, etc. And this account at PIQ Suite will be used going forward for more major events. If anything really kicks off, we'll kind of repost stuff from the other feed into here. Market commentary, stuff from our partners, such as the Awesome Pepperstone, putting stuff like the Blast stuff on there as well. Anything interesting, obviously pictures of Ian, and me shit posting really. It's basically just to put a bit of division between the two and make it so things aren't lost completely. But yeah, that's about it really. So do go give the other account a follow. But yeah, what's been occurring?
Oh, well, it's fucking Groundhog Day, to be honest with you, mate.
Oh, tell me about it, mate.
I
Tell
mean,
me about
it's
it.
very much more of the same this morning. We sat here this time yesterday saying that gilts were selling off and leading a weakness across the long end of government debt globally, or at least in developed markets. And that continued pretty much all the way through yesterday and continues into the early part of the trading session today. In fact, as I speak, we've just seen the 30-year gilt extend its earlier declines to 5 basis points on the day. So we're now trading at 5.75%. That is a fresh high since May of 1998. As our good friend Dickie Matthews suggested to me yesterday, I can now use the line that 30-year gilts are at their highest level in my lifetime, which I'm sure will make a few listeners feel quite old this morning. One thing that is worth bearing in mind here, and we'll get on to why this move may be happening momentarily. But we are getting very close to some quite significant levels. The 10-year gilt is just 15 basis points off a 5% handle. The 30-year gilt is just 25 basis points off a 6% handle. The reason why I think this is important is purely from a psychological perspective. If and when those levels end up getting breached, to the upside, of course, then I do think that this could end up just becoming a little bit self-fulfilling and just starting to potentially spiral out of control. Even though we don't have, or you would hope we don't have, the forced sellers that we had during the whole trust quasi LDI shambles. Nonetheless, I think that just the momentum of that move, even when we do take out those big figures, could extend quite considerably.
And this is exactly what I was saying yesterday on the show. I did say yesterday I feel like we're getting to that point where we're going to see some potentially some liquidity events. People, it's just starting to get a bit snowbally at the moment, unfortunately.
Yes.
And I really, 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 really can't see a way how this is turning around. The only hope we've got is our dear friend Polemic Payne. His old BBC narrative where if it makes a front page of BBC's news website, or indeed it features on BBC Radio 4's morning show, that normally tends to be the turning point for a market. But when the BBC finally get hold of it, although I don't think that would be the case this time.
No, and sources say that it did not lead the 7 o'clock news on the Today programme this morning. So
So more to go.
that
More to go.
indicator
There you
hasn't been triggered just yet.
go.
We might as well just cover off fixed income developments first before we move on to anything else. In terms of UK specific developments, we did have Prime Minister's spokesperson yesterday reiterating that the government have an ironclad commitment to their fiscal rules. I mean, yeah, that's just complete bullshit at this point, to be honest with you. Perhaps the more important headline is that it looks like we do finally have a date for the budget.
Yes.
The Huffington Post, whoever they are, they were first to report this yesterday evening. Politico and Bloomberg running with the story again this morning. The expectation is that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, will today announce that the budget will be held on the 26th of November. That is 12 weeks from today. What I think is going on here is quite obvious, to be honest with you. Reeves is trying to leave things as late as she can, not only in terms of the OBR's forecast, because the OBR say that they actually only need 10 weeks to come up with a forecast, but Reeves has given them 12. She's also leaving things as late as possible to still meet the meteorological definition of autumn, if that matters to anyone, because obviously autumn ends at the end of November. The bigger issue with this, though, is that we've now got 12 weeks ahead of us here in the UK of the government and the Treasury putting trial
Oh,
balloons
don't.
into the media, various sources, stories as to which taxes may be increased, which spending lines may be cut. Of course, that is going to lead to a hell of a lot of uncertainty that is going to even more cripple any business or consumer decision making over the next 3 months, particularly in terms of big ticket items. You think about things like large business investments and also the property market as well. That's another
Yeah.
one to consider. If Reeves is going to
Well,
start going down the route of CGT changes, who the hell is going to try and who's the hell's going to be wanting to do property transactions?
well, unless you think that CGT is going up, in which case get them through the door early. But
Well,
anyway,
essentially.
but again, it's the uncertainty, right? And as we know, uncertainty kills. Two things on this. Firstly, well, three things actually. Firstly, if they are going to start doing, if they are going to continue trial balloons, can we at least do some trial balloons that are kind of good ideas and add a bit of kind of
Yeah.
add some positivity into the market? Because every trial balloon we've had so far has been a fucking disaster. Number two, certain someone did call November 26th as one of the options, so hats off to Michael Brown.
No, thank
Number
you very much.
three, potentially. I would have sobered up for my birthday celebrations by November 26th. And we do know I love to milk my birthday. So it's a week-long celebration this year. So potentially just sobering up as the budget starts. So lovely,
You know
jubbly.
what, mate? Given what the budget is likely to look like, I wouldn't fucking bother sobering up because it'll
Well,
probably be easier to digest if you're half cut.
I think we both know I'll probably be half cut. But thank you for that.
I just thought I'd offer you a little bit of assurance.
No,
But anyway,
I appreciate that. I appreciate, and the fact that you've said this and it's being recorded for everyone to hear. Richard Bernard, head of HR, head of PIQ HR, is listening. It's because of you. If I do turn up to the budget, absolutely off me nut.
good. Right. I'll take the blame for that. What else was I going to say? Yeah, sorry.
I
The,
don't
the
know.
one other thing on the UK fiscal front is I think the reason why Reeves has gone long, effectively, and just waiting 3 months is basically because she's just hoping and praying that something somewhere turns up to bail her out, whether that be, some sort of miraculous economic growth in Q3, whether that be the gilt market calming down, which means the OBR don't have to raise their rate forecast quite as much. I mean, frankly, if you're hoping for a miracle like that to base your whole
I
budget
need
on,
a
I mean, you're
miracle. I
oh
need a
god,
miracle. Oh,
you're off.
just
You're not exactly starting on the firmest of footing, which I think probably is
just
a bit of an understatement.
thinking aloud. Speaking of Rachel Reeves burying her head in the sand, etc. Have we heard anything from her in since Thursday? But
Yes, I believe she was taught. She was said something yesterday. She put out a tweet, or one of her
was it
people put
anything
out
to
a
do with the
tweet.
guilt?
Uh, no, it said it's time to go back to school. I sat down with
Oh,
kids to answer their
oh right, yeah,
questions
exactly.
and talk about what we're doing to give every child the best possible chance in life.
Right, so there you go. So this was probably a scheduled tweet from last week.
Yeah,
So
exactly. We
we've
haven't actually
seen.
heard
So
anything fresh from her.
yeah, exactly. So she's been completely silent, disappeared. In the back room sobbing since this has already turned sour. So just what you want from the person in charge. Lovely jubbly.
Indeed, yes. But it must be said that the sell-off at the long end of the gilt curve is not only a UK story. We have seen pressure on government yields pretty much across the globe. We saw the 30-year JGB yield in Japan that rose about 8 basis points overnight. The 30-year Treasury yield that briefly topped 5% just a moment ago, although we have just pulled back below that figure. So it is not necessarily a UK specific thing. And actually this softness at the long end and steepening of the yield curve has been taking place for some time now. There wasn't an obvious catalyst for this to sort of kick into a higher gear yesterday, although one thing that a few market participants have been pointing out is that we did have a very, very chunky supply slate yesterday in terms of investment grade issuance. We had 25 issuers selling debt in the United States. These are corporate issuers, of course, and we also had a record 50 billion euros worth of debt sold in Europe yesterday, not only as September got underway, but also as US desks returned from the Labor Day weekend. So potentially just a catalyst to bear in mind. Nevertheless, as long-end yields rose, we did see sentiment soften pretty broadly. The S&P and NASDAQ both closing lower yesterday by about 0.7%. And we see futures trading a little bit firmer this morning, but they have given up some of the earlier gains. As equities softened, we saw some havens find a bit of a bid. The dollar trading firmer against all peers yesterday. The dollar index up to highs around 98.5. And of course, gold also continuing to gain ground. Bullion in the spot market up by 1.5% yesterday, trading to fresh record highs, and we have extended on those gains this morning. As for other bits and bobs yesterday, just to rattle through a few things very quickly. On the data front, the latest Eurozone inflation figures at a headline level were bang in line with expectations, with headline CPI having risen by 2.1% on a year-on-year basis in August. The core metric a little bit firmer than expected at 2.3%, but services CPI that moderated to 3.1%, down from a prior 3.2%. All of these year-on-year rates, of course, and none of that is likely to change the calculus for the ECB, who are pretty much certain to hold the deposit rate steady at 2% at their meeting next Thursday. We also have the latest ISM manufacturing stats out of the United States. The ISM manufacturing PMI coming in at 48.7 in August, an improvement on the prior 48, but marginally shy of the 49 consensus, obviously still inside contractionary territory.
Oh, have we lost Michael Brown? Hello? Let me give him a message. Or is it me? Can anyone hear me? It's on WhatsApp.
Why are you asking me that? Yeah, I can hear you.
You kind of cut off there for me. I don't know if it was for anyone else.
Did I? Oh well. Well, I'm still
Okay.
here, so I may as well carry on.
Yeah,
No idea what
go
anyone
for it.
missed. In terms of other news headlines from yesterday on the trade front, President Trump reconfirming that he will be appealing this tariff ruling, repeating that tariffs are an economic emergency, and saying that it could be the end of America if the IEEPA authority is overruled. A little bit of hyperbole coming out of the Oval Office on that one. Sticking with the trade front, Japanese Trade Minister Akazawa, he is finally going to be visiting the United States this week. He was meant to be going last week, but decided he didn't want to go. He is now going instead this week. Of course, the Japanese are still desperate for the US to actually sign this trade deal and get some executive orders in place confirming the auto tariff levels. And lastly, on the trade front, the United States Trump administration have pulled the waiver that TSMC had for shipments of chips from China. This isn't entirely surprising, given that they did the same thing for Samsung, SK Hynix and Intel last week. Moving on very quickly, just a few other headlines sticking in the United States. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, according to the Wall Street Journal, he is going to be starting to interview Fed chair candidates from Friday. Be interesting if anyone is being interviewed at the time or shortly after the jobs report is announced. That could be a little bit of a spicy one to be a fly on the wall in that office. In terms of corporate news, firstly, Elliott, the activist investor, taking a $4 billion stake in PepsiCo. Of course, they are going to push for various changes there to boost the stock price of the company. Apparently, this is one of Elliott's largest equity positions. Of course, Elliott also have quite a significant stake in BP at the moment for any UK-based listeners. Also sticking in terms of...
No pun there. I thought that was ripe for a pun, like, adding some fizz to the market or something like that.
Well, I'm trying to get through things relatively quickly because
Sorry.
we're a bit pushed for time, so I've
Faffing.
elbowed the puns for the time being.
Sorry.
Um, also, in terms of US corporate news, Kraft Heinz, they are going to split into two separate publicly traded companies. Warren Buffett says he is disappointed with this news because, of course, he was one of the main players in terms of bringing them together in the first place. The firm will be splitting into a sauces and seasonings arm, currently titled the Global Taste Elevation Company, and a grocery staples arm, which is currently imaginatively titled the North American Grocery Company. Please hire some branding consultants before you IPO those two, because they are probably the most boring names they could possibly have come up with. Moving on to the AI space, just three headlines on this one to finish off. Anthropic, who obviously build Claude, who I had a bit of an argument with recently, they have completed a new funding round, which values the firm at a whopping $183 billion, which is quite frankly staggering. OpenAI, meanwhile, they're going to be buying a company called StatSig. This is apparently a product testing startup, and it's going to cost the firm $1.1 billion. On the flip side of all that, while those companies enjoy a hell of a lot of success in the AI arena, one firm that isn't is Apple, and things appear to be going from bad to worse for Apple. They have now lost their
Rotten.
lead AI. Oh, dear. Their lead AI robotics researcher has gone to Meta to join their competing efforts. They've also lost three other AI researchers. They are leaving Apple's in-house large language models team. And as a result of all of this, Apple has now increased internal discussions around whether or not they should be relying more on outside AI technology as opposed to homegrown models. This sort of reinforces something that I think we discussed on the call last week around how it's just looking increasingly likely that Apple just end up buying Anthropic or Perplexity or other AI firm in an attempt to try and finally catch up with their peers in this AI arms race. And for the time being, that's all from me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Brown. So I'll read out some of the choice headlines from the overnight news roundup, courtesy of our dear friend Zach. Again, as always, do subscribe to the Substack, do follow Zach, etc., etc. Starting off with macro news, borrowers across the globe sold at least $90 billion, that's with a B, in investment grade debt yesterday as part of global credit markets neared or top records in one of the busiest weeks this year so far. And it's only Wednesday morning. Fed Governor Cook laid out in greater detail her opposition to President Trump's bid to remove her from office, saying it's too late to fire her for mortgage information she disclosed during the confirmation process. Holiday spending by US consumers is set for its steepest drop since the pandemic as shoppers, particularly Gen Z, pull back amid economic uncertainty. Everyone loves a good pullback story.
I'm a little bit sceptical of that.
Okay, why is that?
Well, no, the reason why I'm sceptical of it is because, and again, we spoke about this recently, we've seen in other sentiment surveys where sentiment rolls over, but spending doesn't follow. So I'm just
Yeah,
a little bit unsure as to whether this will be any different from the
yeah.
myriad other data we've had on that sort of front.
No, I see what you're saying there. Definitely want to keep an eye on. But yeah, they have said that about 4,000 consumers between June and July said shoppers on average plan spent yeah, basically they're saying that they're cutting
What
down.
happened there?
I'm reading it and it's just a complete garble basically, so I'm going to skirt over that and agree with you. Some of the world's biggest air cargo operators are warning they face a capacity crunch as their jet fleets age and Boeing and Airbus delay delivery of new cargo aircraft, prioritizing passenger jets. Moving on, signaling the readiness to help further open US markets to digital assets. Two of Wall Street's top regulators told operators of federally registered exchanges that listing certain spot crypto products isn't prohibited. That's one for Cam. So we've got the crypto blast as well later on today, so do catch up with that. House committee released more than 30,000 pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein on Tuesday as Republican lawmakers returned to Capitol Hill facing pressure to make public more details on convicted sex offender. Moving over to Japan, Japan's longer maturity debt slumped, sending yields to multi-decade highs following a global sell-off in bonds and political uncertainty in the nation. Yields on the 20-year government bond rose to levels last seen in 1999. Bit of a UK vibe going on there. While those of the 30-year maturity jumped to the highest since its debut. The Japanese PM Shiba met with BOJ Governor Ueda to exchange views on the economy and financial markets, including currencies. That's after the yen weakened amid rising pressure on Shiba to resign. In response to reporters' questions, Ueda reiterated the BOJ will raise rates if there is improvement in growth and prices in line with central bank's outlook. Sigma Japan's service sector moderated in August, with domestic demand remaining robust even as companies cut staffing levels for the first time in nearly 2 years. That's according to a private sector survey. But as you know, me and Michael are a bit dubious on surveys at the moment. Goldman Sachs, their top Asian banker, sounded an optimistic note on Chinese equities amid resurgent flows and said the firm is hiring in Hong Kong and India. Bit of an anecdotal thing here, but it seems to be any time that Goldman Sachs get bullish on China stocks then tank. That seems to be the vibe that always seems to happen. China's wealthy are once again pouring money into, quote, snowball derivatives for juicier returns, a year after the regulator curbed a product that was blamed for exacerbating a stock rout. French Finance Minister Lombard said the government would inevitably have to compromise on plans to cut the budget deficit if Prime Minister Bayrou is toppled in a confidence vote next week. I think there's a lot of eyes looking at France for next week. It could get very, very dicey indeed. After a succession of summer heat waves, Europe is set for a warmer than average September, which could potentially extend into the start of the heating season for the following month. Good news for the gas market. Well, sorry, not the gas market, but the EU's gas reserves hopefully won't be dragging into those too much. What else we got here? UK Chancellor Reeves should end the, quote, almost perverse, unquote, 15-year freeze on the level of fuel duty as it hands truckers a growing cost advantage over more environmentally friendly rail. That's according to one of the largest rail freight operators. No surprise there. Sticking with UK oil and gas producers already suffering from high taxes and waning output now face the imminent risk of being hit by a pullback in operations by equipment and services supplier. That's according to a lobby group. So basically what that means is we could be expecting to see even higher prices for oil and gas. Indian state and federal ministers will meet for 2 days from Wednesday to weigh the biggest cuts to consumption tax in 8 years in India, aimed at spurring domestic demand in the face of economic headwinds from US tariffs. The World Gold Council, they're seeking to launch a digital form of gold, a move that could revolutionise London's $900 billion physical market. That's from
I can
FT.
just hear people going, "Yeah, digital gold already exists. It's called Bitcoin."
Was that a fake voice or was that your usual voice? That sounds like you after a couple of jars.
It's only 9 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. The London Metal Exchange, the LME, delayed the start of trading in Asia by 90 minutes on Wednesday with no explanation, with its electronic platform opening at 9:30 a.m. Beijing time instead of the usual 8 a.m. Just another issue with LME. They really need to get their house in order if they want to keep the market share that they kind of claim at the moment. Geopolitical news, China flaunts military might with lavish parade and sends warning to Washington. That's gone to the Wall Street Journal. I did watch a bit of that parade last night. It did really put to shame whatever it was that Trump put together a couple of weeks back. Everyone's marching in tune, some decent tunes popping out, the brass band. It was a decent watch, to be honest. The US, they've launched a deadly strike in the southern Caribbean targeting a drugged vessel that had left Venezuela. This is obviously further to America deploying warships, etc., to the area. For those not aware not up to speed on this, it's worth kind of giving it a bit of a Google. Basically, the idea being that Venezuelan leader Maduro is basically behind the rumors are, or the kind of whispers is, that he's behind one of the biggest kind of transportation cartels, or even cartels creating the drug, basically in South America. And it's all coming to the fore now, which is why Trump is not very happy. Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, told Russian president that cooperation between the nations had greatly increased since the signed a partnership treaty in June 2024, and he'll be willing to do everything I can to assist Russia. Further to note on this as well, I did see just before we came on air that there was some headlines saying that Kim Jong-un had actually shook the hand of South Korean, I think it was foreign minister or spokesperson or someone like that. So one to keep an eye on, maybe a bit thawing in relations. Equity news, Apple's So I'll start again. Alphabet Inc.'s Google will be required to share online search data with rivals while avoiding harsher penalties, including the forced sale of its Chrome business. Obviously, markets took a hell of a leap when it was announced last night that they
Yeah, they're
won't be
up
forced to sell
6% or so,
Chrome.
weren't they?
Yes, a big old bid. Walt Disney, well, not him personally, but the company will pay $10 million to settle allegations from the Federal Trade Commissions that claimed that the company unlawfully collected children's data for targeted advertising. FedEx Corp has launched a new regional hub in Riyadh and secured a Saudi economic license to operate as a foreign air courier, deepening its bet on the kingdom as a rising logistics power in the Middle East. BMW is betting on software-controlled EVs powered by, quote, super brains, unquote, in one of the most ambitious attempts by struggling legacy car makers to take on Chinese rivals. And Tesla, its iX3 sport utility vehicle, which debuts on Friday ahead of the Munich Motor Show, will be the first to be developed on its long-awaited new class platform. What else we got? The Trump administration is toughening stance on Medicare spending and prompting bets against UK medtech Convatec Group. This is this is the most shorted London listed blue chip, so one to keep an eye on for anyone involved in that stock price. Volvo Cars. The Swedish brand controlled Geely Holding Group is handing more power to executives in China. And finally, from me, Hyundai Motors unionized workers, are launching a 3-day partial strike this week in South Korea to press for higher wages, reduced working hours, and a retirement age extension. And that's it from me. I was trying to think of a pun to go with the IKEA story that they're going to open up more stores in China, but I couldn't put one together.
For fuck.
Boom! Boom, boom!
Oh, you are so proud of that, aren't you?
Oh, God, I am.
Oh,
Right, go
dear.
on, over to you. Back to you in the studio.
Well, first, before I get on to the day ahead, fixed income update. 30-year treasuries have backed away a fair chunk from that 5% handle, but gilts are still close to the wides. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a rocky one here in the UK. As for scheduled events, in 2 minutes' time, we get final services PMI data out of the Eurozone. At 9:30, we get final services PMI stats out of the UK. Neither of those are expected to be significantly revised from the flash estimates. Into the rest of the day at 10 this morning, we get PPI stats out of the Eurozone. PPI seen having fallen by 0.1% on an annual basis in July. This data very, very stale indeed, and also not really going to alter the ECB's thinking ahead of next Thursday's policy decision. Stateside today at 3 o'clock this afternoon, we get the latest factory orders stats. Orders, they are set to have fallen by 1.4% in July. That would be a marginal improvement from the 4.8% decline that we saw in June. Also at 3, we get the latest job openings data. The JOLT survey is set to show 7.373 million vacancies in July. That will be down from the 7.437 million vacancies that we saw in June. If we can have less sevens in that number, that would be much appreciated. In terms of other bits and bobs today, quite a few central bank speakers, actually. Those from the BoE probably of most interest, given market developments. BoE Governor Bailey, Deputy Governor Lombardelli, and external MPC members Green and Taylor. They will be testifying to the Treasury Select Committee in Parliament at about 2 o'clock this afternoon. If any MPs actually understand what's going on, or are listening, then please ask Governor Bailey what the bank are thinking when it comes to active gilt sales at their September policy decision. I think if Bailey gave a pretty strong hint that they are looking to slow significantly or even end active gilt sales, that would probably do the market and the long end of the curve quite a significant favour. Other than that, we're due to hear from the Fed's New Zealand, the ECB's Lagarde, and the RBA's Bullock as the day progresses. Also later on tonight, the Fed will be releasing their beige book of anecdotal economic evidence. And last but by no means least, on the earnings front before the open today, we're due to hear from Macy's, and then after the market close, due to hear from Salesforce. And that is your lot from me this morning.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Brown. Just a repeat, do follow our new Twitter account, PIQ Newswires, for where we will be posting all of the breaking news headlines, etc. Also, do tune in for today's blasts with Cam on crypto markets and Angie on grain markets. It's a goodbye from me. It's a huge thanks to Michael as always. And yeah, whatever you're doing today, keep it tight, stay safe, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Much love.
Indeed. Bye for now.